What about airspace?
Yeah, okay. What I was going to say, none of that really matters because if you come along to the hill and it seems a good day, you can say to somebody, I'm thinking of going to XE, what's the airspace? And if somebody, the chances are somebody will go, they'll get the map out and they'll go, you've got 5,000 feet for the next 5.5, let's say a standard Tinto North day, you've got 5,500 feet for the next 40 or 50k. That's all you need to know. Don't go above 5,500 feet and go that way, you're fine. You know, so you don't, yeah, you do need to check. I'm not suggesting just blast off without knowing anything of where you're going, but you don't have to have studied the air charts or have an air chart with you. If you've spoken to somebody and they've showed you the chart, you know, that's as much as you need to know. But here's the really, really important bit, and this is I actually think why doing all this stuff that we've talked about for the 5 days before a potential day comes up is what goes into your subconscious, the image that gets generated in your subconscious about what you might be able to do on this day, whenever it comes. If by thinking about it, chatting to folk and whatever else you might do, reading articles in the Skywings or stuff, if you come along to the hill with an image planted in your subconscious of you climbing out, getting really high, maybe even getting to base and gliding off over a few towns and roads and maybe even getting another climb and doing it all again, if that's what's in there, the chances are that's what will happen. That's actually the only prerequisite for flying cross country. If you come along to the hill with an image in your subconscious of I'm going to soar the hill and I'm going to stay near my car and land to get my sandwiches at lunchtime, if that's what's in your subconscious, there is not the slightest possibility that you will go XE. So that's actually the only thing that determines what the XE outcome of that day will be for you. And doing all this planning stuff, that going through the process of planning starts to become really, really important, because the very act of stuff like getting a map out, and I'm a great believer in maps. They used to have these in the olden days. They're really, really good because you can lay them out on a table and it shows you in one image places like Grassington. Okay, that must be somewhere in Dales, Hawes. Right, Weatherfell. Let's see if we can get this to vaguely stick there. Weatherfell there, the coast. If you've never been to Weatherfell before, it's just a big hill in the Dales, and somebody says to you, we're going to fly from Weatherfell to the coast. Or it might be you're hearing about it in the past and they say, we flew from Weatherfell to the coast. If the feeling that that generates in you is something along that kind of line, that's impossible. No, I don't know how that happened. Then that's just a clear indication that you don't have an image in your subconscious that can take in, or that has an image that is kind of like from Weatherfell to the coast. Now, if you've flown from Weatherfell to the coast, you clearly do. You've seen the views, you've flown over Yorkminster, you've seen the coast approaching past Hull, blah, blah, blah. You've got that in your subconscious. The real clever bit is to get some kind of approximation into your subconscious of what that flight is like, and then when it starts to happen, when you're down, starting to climb out, you're getting close to base, there's going to be something inside you going, yeah, this is what I thought it was like. Big load of moors, you look downwind, there's a big load of moors. That's fine, I know there's a few roads across them, I don't need to bother with that. You drift off down, and then you've looked at, no more detail than this. Okay, the ground flattens off, then it goes pretty flat. There's the A1, there's York, then it gets flatter again, then it's a beach. All it takes is looking at that map a couple of times and you've got a lovely clear picture of what it's going to be like. And the very act of looking at the map and visualising what it's going to look like is going to be putting images into your subconscious that are going to result in that image being there. So that if that's what happens, and I'm picking that as an example because it's something I experienced really, really recently. I'd been to Weatherfell lots of times, but I'd never got any significant distance from it. And we went down sometime last year, and it was a big classic day and all the superstars were there, and that was the plan. Climb out, base, blah, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, land at the coast. And people did. There was folk landed at the coast, there was folk all over the place. Even York that day or something, wasn't you know, none of these folk would have been anywhere if they'd come along with an image that was something along Weatherfell is this ridge in the Dales that you saw. If they'd come down with that image, that's what they would have done. Just to show you the other good thing that a map can do, you can draw on it. So there's all the assorted ATZs, which are the ones that come into play from Weatherfell. So airspace-wise, there's really nothing particularly clever about it. You just fly along, going downwind, and you spot where you are on the ground first of all. So you keep looking out the window to know where you are on the ground, and you line them up with these lines, and you'd say, well, there's whatever village, it's in between these two, and you fly over the top of that, and you list the ATZs. So route planning, both from the point of view of working out how big the hills are that you're going to fly over, what the airspace is going to be, blah, blah, that kind of stuff, which is good, but most importantly, because it helps, it's a really good help for visualising what the flight is going to look like.
I think if you're flying in England, the whole ATZ and just looking where they are ahead really cannot be overstated.
Because it looks like quite a small gap.
Yeah, so...
And what if you just lose track of which village is which, and then suddenly you're like, which bit's which?
Well,
you know, you don't travel that fast over the ground. You do tend to see villages coming up in the distance, and it's 10 minutes later before you're over them, and then...
But there's always this thing that, oh, the cities are just there, it starts just somewhere here, and there's the cloud, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
How much can I go? So it really is good to do it. When I was actually flying that, I didn't expect, well, I kind of hoped I would fly that far to get these ATZs, but I probably didn't not do enough planning beforehand. So when it looked like it's a really, really good day, I just had one line on my GPS that I knew if I'm gonna roughly go from takeoff to that point, kind of give or take 10 kilometers each side, I'm probably not gonna hit any airspace. But that was, yeah, it wasn't ideal. So it's always good to have something more, well, planned up.
I mean, in addition to that, this season I'm going to move into the modern age, and I am, if anybody knows how to physically do it, I am going to get a Kobo thing. That's a seek for a plea for assistance. I haven't the faintest idea what you do to get a Kobo, but that's what I need.
There was somebody in Skylink selling them pre-made with a GPS and built a couple of issues ago.
I could provide coaching at a good rate an hour.
Right. You're hired.
So David, before the advent of technology then, if you were kind of on Weatherfell looking at your route, what would you fold your map to the bit which has got the most difficult airspace on it, or what?
No, what I do is start off, you know, if it's a westerly, I would fold it so that I certainly don't have anything east of I've lost it.
But you can't have the whole route in your map
Well,
at the same time.
yes and no. You know, you would start with a fold like that and say, okay, that's as far west as I was going to go. I'm not going to go north of that. I'm not going to go south of that. I'm getting there now. That's the coast, so you can knock that bit off. And then you can say, well, fair enough, let's put the start in, so we'll fold that bit there. If it's nice and westerly, we could fold that there, and then that's two sides of the map case. You'll be surprised the number of times, of course, that you end up with a damn thing. I mean, this is a this is a good quality version of one of my maps. My Scottish ones are decidedly more shredded than that.
As someone who's more recently doing XC than Dave, the first ones will probably not involve 40, 50 Ks. So, realistically, going off the edge of your map will be the least of your concerns.
You need a map to know where you landed and where to call your mates to pick you up from.
Yeah.
But the crucial bit is committing to it. Once you're climbing and climbing going up, and just get to the point where you think, not sure if I can go with this, can I or can't I? That's the bit if it looks as if you can, there's not any reason not to commit to it and just forget all the stuff about somebody will come and get you, or you will find your way back, or you're not going to die in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing.
I mean, really commit to it.
In the UK, nothing's going to eat you, no one's going to shoot you, unless you go to like land in England somewhere.
Like from the perspective that obviously someone that doesn't know anything about XC, I would say that the main hazards would be, or the main things that you need to know is be very confident at landing and pick where you're going to land. I guess avoiding airspace.
Yeah.
And I guess be prepared to a very long walk or in sort of remote terrain, and would that be the main consideration?
You won't die. Like the worst what can happen in the UK is you're gonna land in the middle of Neugarth or Cairngorms, and that's like a day and a half walk out at most. You know that.
That's the absolute extreme.
Yeah.
Being realistic, and it's a pity because some of the slides that I had got to show related exactly to this kind of discussion. I had picked some stills of standard climb outs from Dungable, Tinto, looking downwind. So it's the standard view that you see when you're on the way up, and when you get to the top of the climb, you go, that's it, we're off. I'm not saying you wait till you're at the top of the climb till you say, that's it, we're off. The chances are you've said, that's it, we're off, as soon as you become certain that you're going to stay with the climb, which could easily be at not much more above hilltop height. If it's well in front of the hill, you could be below hilltop height in a really strong climb, and you could say, oh, I'm sticking with this. And 1,000 feet later, you're maybe still not over the back of the hill, and you say, I'm still sticking with this. So you've actually made the decision much earlier. But at some point, you'll get up to the top, and you turn. I mean, you see it every time on the way around anyway, but at some point, you actually turn and you start flying it, and you get faced with a set of terrain, which is which I had in the pictures, so you'll just need to imagine them. No, I'm not going to try and draw.
Just jumping in again a little bit. I mean, the first day is don't get discouraged if you see it, because good guys, Dave and company will be gone, and if you miss that one, then it's obviously happening on the day. If you missed it, it's all sweaty over up. That's not it for the day. Most of the good days start with a lot of sweating and little attempts and don't quite work. So persevere, and then it will almost certainly still be there. And then you've got a chance to catch them up.
It kind of comes back to the same thing as I was saying. If you've come to the hill with this thing planted in your subconscious, I am going to go today, you won't know it consciously. You won't know whether you've got that in there. But if it gets to the end of the day and you're still on the hill, and you've got a feeling of, oh well, that's the day finished, let's go home, that was great fun flying, then it wasn't in there. And if you get to the end of the day and you've got a feeling of, oh, what happened? Oh, we never got away. Then you know that it was in there, and you just didn't manage to get away. The chances are, if you come along with that feeling, the feeling you'll be feeling is landing in a field somewhere down the track, going, wow, that was pretty good.
I think
That's how you feel once it's all finished. That tells you what was in your subconscious.
that really can't be overstated. It's just, yeah, that's even just an open mind that, yeah, I'll probably go somewhere. You don't have to think I'm going to 100k or whatever. Just, I'm going to go up the hill and then do my best to stay up as much as I can. And it really is 50% thinking most of the time. Like, once you can climb out of it, it's really not that hard to go XC and maybe then catch another lift or something like that. And then all the outlanding,
It becomes much easier because you're going to be at least probably 1,500, 2,000 feet.
yeah,
up. And
Just-
you know, the range of places you can land from there is huge.
yeah, just look out for it high enough.
Just,
Think about it high enough. There's no forest in the UK, so there's plenty of spaces. High enough, watch out for wires, watch out for obstacles. Simple as that. It really is actually often usually much easier than landing in the bottom of Dungavel or something, because you have a massive big field that you can just sort of yours. So it's really easier than people think.
It's a crucial point though, because what you're doing is listing something that you see as currently being, let's not call it a barrier, but at least an obstacle. Something that is a bit of, oh, I'm not, here's one of the things I need to sort out before I go. And you know, that as Bob said, that's one of the main themes of what the New Pilots group is all about, is identifying these specific skills, which are to do with the basics of glider control, to be confident with that, your takeoff technique, being able to soar, to stay up long enough to catch the climb that you want, thermaling, to be able to get yourself into a position to thermal first of all, far enough away from the hill, the actual climbing bit, which we covered last month, and then the decision making bit, where you're basically up there and you just go, where do I want to go? Which is why, you know, I said, pick these photographs with a standard view looking east from Dungavel. You can imagine it, Tinto's over on your left hand side, the Clyde Valley extending right through to Symington, then to Biggar, and the line of hills to the south of you, which is, as I said earlier, the line of the Southern Upland Fault. You could draw it on the map, we had it there anyway, didn't we? Where did we put it?
I think it's worth saying that to accumulate all these different skills and to try and disperse all these anxieties takes years, it doesn't take months. For some folk it takes considerable number of years. It depends how much airtime you can get, how much experience you've got.
I wouldn't put it in your head that it takes years, because like take Stella from her second post-CP flight went cross country.
Yeah.
10k,
So
but, you know, went over the hill, landed in the campsite.
We spoke about it in the morning, basics of thermaling, turn this way, turn that way.
Yeah.
And she said, well, yeah, it seemed like I was in a thermal, so I turned in it the way you described, and I got up really high, and I thought, well, I'm really high, let's go somewhere.
Second flight was
She's lucky.
Really, it's as straightforward as that.
You know,
You
she
pay
was,
for it,
she
yeah.
was able to do it because she
I think she just approached it with a pretty open mind, and that was it.
Totally, that's all it takes. So this is what I was trying to illustrate by these, what was going to be a view looking from there from about 3,000 feet. It's now a brilliant drawing. There's Tinto, there's Dungavel, with the River Clyde going round it, and there's the line of hills, which is the Southern Upland Fault. So the main road runs along there, and you've got Cooter and then Biggar. So you've basically a line of hills all the way along. So you take off, you get thermal, and you look downwind, and this is what you see. Tinto on your left, the Clyde Valley, and then all the hills. Planning. You could climb up and just make a random decision. You could say, don't know, going that way. You could follow somebody, not a bad strategy. Or you could have thought about it in advance. You could have looked at your map and you could have said, well, once I get up, no, reinforcing that, once I get up, not when it, not if I get up. Once I get up, what I'm going to see is this, so I could clearly either go that way, I could go that way, or I could go that way. What's going to be the best? You're on the ground chatting with your mates, so you've got plenty of, you know, totally stress-free, you're not pressed for time. The way of considering your options is probably going to be more constructive. Again, I keep repeating it, it's not necessary, but the chances are you'll make a better decision about which way to go, at least once you've got to the top of the first climb, if you've thought about it before you've done the climb, rather than as you're doing the climb, you're kind of concentrating on, right, what, the thermal's over there, a bit of climbing over, another glider there. You're getting up and, you know, it's quite kind of head heavy kind of stuff. You get up to the top, you're at base, and then it's like, whew, what now? and you're making the decision really quite quickly, because you know, once you do set off in a glide, you quite quickly have a bias as to which way you want to go. So that's not saying it's not necessary, but it probably is beneficial to have a think about it. On the same diagram, let's look at what happens on a northwesterly from Tinto. Because here's a thing that we commonly see happen. Pilots, early XC pilots, do their climb out, great, they're up at base. Let's follow the wind. That's always a good idea, is just to fly downwind. Anyway, if you don't have a better idea, just fly downwind. They fly downwind, and what they see ahead of them in the photo that I had shows it really, really clearly. It just looks like a mass of hills. That's kind of what hills look like when you're looking at them from high. Hill, 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 hill. All the roads are in the valleys, so you can't see the roads. It doesn't look like a map at that point. And what commonly happens with kind of starter pilots is that they go, whoa, bunnies, big long walks, whoa, I'm not going there. And they suddenly find themselves diverting that way, or they divert that way. Now, it's a...
It's like one time to the Moorfoots he's made it.
Sorry?
It's the Moorfoots.
One long time.
We'll do it one of these days. I'm not saying that's always a bad choice. There could be some days where there's some reason why that might be what you want to do. But even in 6,000-7,000 foot cloud-based days with really good thermals, we still see folk diverting to basically fly along the valley.
Sorry.
They fly along the valley because they haven't really done enough of the looking at the map thing. Because the other thing that the map can do for you is, whilst it looks from the air like that, hill, 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 once you actually look at your map, you'll see that there's a road comes in, goes to there, there's a main road runs along there, there's a road cuts from there to there, there's a road goes in there, and there's another road comes that way which also cuts in there. So it isn't actually what it looks like a mass of hills. It's just a load of hills with valleys in it, and most of the valleys have got roads in them. So the worst that's going to happen if you just fly straight over the top of them is that you don't get over them and you land in one of the roads. So, famous phrase that I made up, we don't have boonies in Scotland, what we have is crossings. So if you think of it, instead of being a mass of boonies, it's simply a crossing from the main road that runs the A72 or 3 or whatever it is, down to the whatever it is there. You're basically just crossing a ridge of hills into the next valley, and then there's a road in the next valley. So if you get enough height to go from there to there, then that's fine. The chances are, given that most of the thermals come off the tops of the hills, the chances are you'll get a climb in the way over anyway. So before you're even over that valley, you'll be on your way to the next one. So how does this relate to planning? Just in terms of saying that if you'd had a look at your map, you would know that there's loads of roads in there, so that when you get up to the top, you won't look at it and go, that's a mass of hills, I'm not going there. Hills are much better to fly over than valleys. And I'm going to take the opportunity to show you the most important thing in relation to flight planning on a paraglider.
Dave carries in his harness.
Now, nearly everybody has seen this before. Every single time somebody crashes on a paraglider, on a crash that relates to a failure of their decision making, right? Not anything to do with glider control. There only are two ways of crashing: failure of your glider control skills and failure of decision making skills. And the decision making ones, they always happen because somebody has a flight plan that's like that. This is what's going to happen in whatever respect, i.e. linear. This is what's going to happen, and then they go along and they get to a crunch point and it doesn't happen. Something different happens and they go, "Arr!" And then in the middle of the fact that they're really pushed for time because it already has happened differently from what they thought it was going to, and they're really stressed because it doesn't really look very good, they then have to make a decision, having set their mind into the worst mode possible for decision making, and they have to decide what to do really, really quick. And they get it wrong and they crash. So the trick to avoiding that is to use flight planning paraglider style, which is totally different from flight planning 747 style, or in fact any other kind of powered aircraft. And that's why I think we should actually use a completely different term. We talk about flight planning and people say, what's your flight plan? As if that makes any sense on a paraglider, which it doesn't, of course. Because paragliding flight planning is all about understanding the unknowns and the variables. Like in the most classic example, when you pull your glider up and take off, you know that you're either going to go up or you're going to go down. Right? If you just stay at the same height, all you're doing is deferring the point. Sooner or later, you're going to go up or you're going to go down. So, having given that great amount